Welcome, everybody, to the HRO Sports Betting Podcast. You got Coach here with T coming off a very successful 10-3 week 0 and week 1 record. So, congrats, T, on that. That's awesome. That's putting money in pockets. And we're on to week 2. We're going to talk some of the big games here. And we might provide a little insight a little later on in the week about some of the other games that are outside the top 25 or games that you might have some interest in. But for right now, we're going to focus on that. And our next game that we'll be covering here today on the HRO Sports Betting Podcast, Kentucky at Florida. Florida being around a 4.5 point favorite at time of recording. These are two teams that after week 1, I think you've got to avoid that overreaction. I really liked Florida. I really liked what I saw out of Florida after week 1. The Richardson kid definitely has vaulted up on the Heisman watch, and I like what he really brings to the table. Kentucky, on the other hand, has been one of those teams out in the SEC East that could do some damage out there. Could knock on the door. I don't think either of these teams are going to touch Georgia, but I do think both of these teams are right there and can contend for that number 2 position. I actually had South Carolina moving way up the ranks out in the East. But, man, Florida surprised me. So I got to give them credit where credit is due. And I actually like Florida to cover in this one. And that may be some action for me. T, what are your thoughts?
I thought Kentucky was solid against Miami, Ohio. 16-point favorite. That game came way down. Was over 20, I believe, at one point. Against Miami, Ohio. Ended up beating them 37-13. Will Levis was good.
Yep.
Didn't have a special game, but was solid. Over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. Did turn it over. My problem with Kentucky is they could not get anything going on the ground. I mean, they tried. They had 26 carries for 50 yards.
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta be better than that. And Florida struggled in week 1 to stop the run, but if Kentucky can't take advantage of that, then you're not able to take advantage of a weakness.
Agreed.
As far as Florida goes, I actually this morning went back and rewatched that game, Florida and Utah, where Florida ended up edging them out 29-26.
Yep.
Live, Richardson was special.
Yeah.
I mean, but because there were a couple plays that really kind of stuck out that were just
Agreed.
Wow. Going back and watching it, I mean, he was all right. 17-24 for 168. It was good on the ground. Had 11 carries for over 100 yards. If he can't get anything going through the air, I don't know if Florida will be able to beat some of the top teams in the SEC.
Agreed.
And I get it that, and I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback or anything along those lines, but I mean, his feet and the running game is kind of what makes him special.
He makes plays with his feet. No doubt about it.
Just some of that inconsistency with throwing the football, I think, could be a problem down the line. As far as this game in particular goes, I made this game 5. Florida favored -5. I don't think that the Florida win over Utah had a lot to do with this line. I believe it would have been in that 3.5, 4.5 range either way.
Yeah. Now, just your thoughts, because it was interesting. I was listening to some radio in the last couple of days about overreaction and when people like to make adjustments, when books like to make adjustments. There's one prominent radio personality here in Las Vegas who had some sharp bettors that he was speaking with over the radio and basically stating that they really don't make adjustments. They like to take in at least 3 data points before they make an adjustment. They say the books will make slight adjustments along the way, but really like that third week so that they don't overreact. I may be overreacting a little bit. I've watched Florida live. I really like the playmaking ability of Richardson. Maybe that's why I like this game a lot more than you do. But maybe tell our listeners, this is a good opportunity. When do you really start to feel, boy, I might have missed on this team. I've got to readjust. How many do you like that third week? Do you like that second week? Or aren't you afraid to say, you know what, I really missed on this team right away?
I mean, if I'm off on something, I'll make an adjustment.
Okay.
Early on, I tend to lean more towards injuries and stuff of that nature, to make that early, like week 1 to week 2 adjustments.
Okay.
But then from there, a lot of it is just feel.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been doing this for a couple of years professionally, but even before I was 21, I was still I got notebooks of just tracking stuff in Wisconsin where you couldn't even bet anything.
Yeah.
Where I was still kind of tracking and perfecting the art, so to speak. So a lot of it is, for me, is just off of feel. Yeah. But early on, injuries play a bigger role
than you'll say about week 3. Yeah. And I'd say for me, what I've learned in this business is you just can't have an ego. If you've missed, you've missed. Yeah. You know, and you've got to adjust on it.
It's all right. You're going to
be adjusting on it. You're going to be wrong. But that adjustment, and like for Utah, I didn't really adjust them much. I didn't adjust them down after losing to Florida, just knowing how tough it is to play in the heat and the humidity. I thought Utah would be able to bounce back. And I thought, for the most part, Utah, I thought, outplayed Florida in the game. The Richardson kid just made some plays, and as a coach, what you find out is you can get those special individuals. If they can just make a play for you, it's a difference in a ball game, and I thought that's what the Richardson kid did in that first game. So that being said, I'm taking it. You don't have an official play on this one. I would say I'm leaning Florida, and we're moving on to our next game. I'd like to thank everybody for listening in to the HRO Sports Betting Podcast. Once again, we'd like to thank the High Roller organization for giving us the opportunity to bring this insight into the big games that are coming up in week 2 in college football. And I wish all of you the best of luck, and make sure you cash those tickets at the window. Take care.